I know the feeling. You scroll through a sea of sleek-looking gaming monitors, the images are flawless, the specs look like something out of a sci-fi movie, and then you finally get one home only to discover the picture looks flat, the motion feels off, or the colors look washed out. That's the nightmare that makes many gamers hesitate at the checkout, because no one wants to waste money on a display that looks great on paper, but disappoints when you actually sit down to play. I've spent the last few weeks setting up a few high-end 1440p panels and testing them with everything from fast-paced shooters to color-critical creative work, so I can tell you whether the MSI MAG271p QD-X24 lives up to the hype or ends up another regret. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the most obvious thing that sets this monitor apart is the QD panel. It's a 26.5-inch screen that can actually show over a billion colors, thanks to the 10-bit quantum dot layer. In practice, that means you're not just getting the usual 8-bit good enough palette you see on most LCDs, you're seeing subtle gradients in a sunset, or the exact hue of a character's armor without banding. When I paired the panel with a recent RTX 3080 and cranked the resolution to native WQHD, the image stayed sharp even while I was turning my head quickly in a fast-paced battle royale. The 0.03 milliseconds response time lives up to its promise. There's virtually no ghosting when I flick a sniper scope across the screen, and the 240 Hz refresh rate keeps the motion buttery smooth. That said, the QD technology brings a trade-off that isn't obvious in the spec sheet: potential burn-in. MSI's OLED Care 2.0 software tries to mitigate this by shifting static UI elements and dimming them when they stay in place too long. But it's still something to consider if you're the type who leaves your HUD on for hours on end. In my testing, leaving a static health bar on the screen for a full day didn't cause any visible imprint, but the software did dim the bar a few percent to protect the pixels. If you're a competitive gamer who runs marathon sessions with the same HUD, you'll want to make a habit of using the built-in screensaver or rotating UI elements whenever possible. Connectivity is another area where the MAG271p shines. It supports DisplayPort 1.4a and HDMI 2.1, meaning you can plug it directly into a modern console and actually hit the full 1440p at 240Hz bandwidth. I hooked it up to a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series X, and both consoles were able to push games at 144 Hz with HDI enabled, something you rarely see outside of 4K panels. The HDMI 2.1 port also supports variable refresh rate, so flickering and tearing were a thing of the past even with titles that don't have native high refresh support. For PC users, the DisplayPort delivers a clean, low-latency signal that works well with G-Sync compatible GPUs, and the monitor's built-in gaming intelligence suite lets you toggle between different preset modes: a low-latency mode for shooters and a color-accurate mode for creative work. Who should actually buy this monitor? If you're a competitive gamer who values both raw speed and a rich color experience, the MAG271p is a compelling choice. The 240 Hz refresh combined with essentially instantaneous pixel response means you'll see every frame, which can be the difference between a win and a loss in high-skill titles. At the same time, the quantum.OLED panel gives you the kind of color depth that streamers love. The audience sees exactly what you see, with vivid reds and deep blacks that make your footage pop. Creative professionals who do video editing or 3D work will also appreciate the 99% DCI-P3 coverage, because you get a more accurate representation of what you'll deliver to clients. And the HDR True Black 400 support adds extra punch to highlights. On the flip side, if you're primarily a casual gamer, or you mainly use your PC for office work, the price point of this monitor might be harder to justify. You could get a solid 144 Hz IPS panel for a fraction of the cost that still delivers smooth gameplay, and you wouldn't have to worry about the burn-in precautions. Likewise, if you're a console-only player who never exceeds 1080p, you'll be paying for resolution and refresh rates you'll never actually use. The monitor's 26.5-inch size is also a bit of a sweet spot. It's large enough to be immersive, but not as expansive as a 32-inch display, which some people prefer for a wider field of view in simulation games. There are a couple of practical weaknesses that show up once you live with the monitor day to day. The stand, while adjustable for tilt, is fairly minimal when it comes to height and swivel. If you have a desk that isn't the perfect height, you might need a separate riser or VESA mount. The speakers are essentially non-existent, so you'll want a decent pair of headphones or external speakers if you care about audio.